What's going on, everybody? This is Jason back in the basement, and this is my first video of 2024. And just for reference, I'm shooting with the Nikon P7800 premium small sensor compact from back in the day. I'm really testing this out. I've had this camera for about 2 months now. Really been putting it through its paces. And what's unique about this particular camera is that it has a mic input and a flip screen. So it kind of is interesting to see if this video will work for video. So I'm just taking a look, and I say, you know what? My first video of 2024, I'm going to use this camera and see how it goes, as the video camera for this vlog. So I got 2 ring lights. I'm shooting at 1080p 30. I've got 1/60 of a second on the shutter. I've got ISO 400 and f2 at 28 millimeters. So that's just locked off shot. Also locked off my white balance at about 4,000 Kelvin. So that's it. So for this video, I want to kind of just retrospect of 2024 and what did I learn in 2024. So in 2023. What did I learn in 2023? So last year I did experiment a lot with cameras. I did buy quite a few cameras that have come and gone throughout the period, particularly the Panasonic GX85 Micro Four Thirds camera. I really delved into Micro Four Thirds. That was my goal in the early part of 2023, was to experiment with Micro Four Thirds. I was always interested and intrigued by it. As a Fuji, shooter primarily, past Canon shooter, and I dabbled in Nikon. Fuji is still my preferred camera system, Fuji X APS-C. But I wanted to just see how that went, and one of my lights went out. I don't know why. Okay. My ring light died, so I had to make an adjustment. But like I was saying, experimented with Micro Four Thirds in 2023, as well as other cameras. I did have some other smaller cameras that I had. I had a Canon small sensor point and shoot, the SD790IS, the Samsung EX2F. I had a few. I can't even remember them all, but the point was that I wanted to kind of experiment and do videos about them, and it was fun. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the process, but ultimately Fuji's still my preferred system. And the 2 smaller cameras that I did stick with are the Ricoh GRD4, the small sensor version, not the APS-C one, but the last 1/17 inch sensor camera. Great for the pocket. It's a really small pocket camera that fits like me when I'm not really serious, but I want to be out shooting, and I shoot with that. And then what I'm vlogging on right now is the Nikon P7800, which is a premium compact, that has a lot of features, versatile zoom range, same sensor size as the Ricoh, so 1/17. Has a 28-200 lens, has a flippy screen, mic input, hot shoe, lots of dials and controls, some level of customization. Just love the versatility, f2 to f4 lens. So yeah, just really solid for just kind of non-serious situations, but you want the versatility of the zoom range. Maybe even, I pair it with other cameras, like say my X Pro 2, I might be shooting, say, the 40mm pancake that's on it, or the 23 f2, where I'm handling kind of like that general purpose, wide-ish angle, doing that. And then I want to shoot the Nikon, where the 135 and 200 might come into play. If it's just, just something in the distance where, I just want to get those shots. And then, if I've had a slew of lenses and things like that as well. But what I learned the most in 2023 was to embrace limitations. Now, what I mean by that is a lot of technological advances have come along the way in the last decade of digital photography. We've got more megapixels, we've got better screens, better EVFs, We've got, 4K video, some even 6 and 8K now. So we've definitely seen a lot of change and advances. But from a pure photography standpoint, I don't think those changes really have benefited us as much as we might have think. They make things more convenient. But I think in terms of the art of photography, I think we have to embrace limitations. And I found that there was cameras coming out in a certain era of time that had limitations that likened to a film-like experience. And to me, a good example of that was the Ricoh GRD that I use. And so I treat those cameras like film cameras. You don't want to have ISOs going out crazy and stuff like that. You want to lock down your ISO like it's a film roll in your camera. I shoot at 400, sometimes 200, but mostly 400 to get that extra speed. I shoot at 800, and then sometimes you shoot at 1600 indoors with some limitations. But a lot of times I'll stick to 4 and 800, and if I'm indoors, I might pop the flash on. And I've been really enjoying slowing down my shooting experience and not being so anxious to shoot, auto ISO or, things like that, right? And that can be helpful at times. But on cameras of that old generation, it doesn't really work that well. A lot of times the auto ISO defaults to a low number anyway, and that low number usually is 400. And so it kind of tells you where the camera wants, to be. It gives you a clue. So if you do push it, and you can push it, especially if you are in the right situations, you can push it past 4 and get to 8 and even 16, knowing that maybe sometimes you might want to convert it to black and white because the grain might be too much for a color photo and take away from the subject matter and really want to make it, some artistic. So I've been embracing that. And I feel like some of my best photos have come from these small sensor compacts. And another thing is, just because it has a small sensor doesn't mean that it wasn't made to be something for an enthusiast. And I think these cameras, like the P7800, has a lot of great features that really says that it was made to be a companion to a bigger sensor system, because it has a lot of the same conveniences and features that say, you know what, it should be made to take seriously, and you can get good results, keeping in mind that these aren't the type of photos that you're going to print at massive sizes. And if you do, you're not going to be standing right in front of it if they are going to be printed really big. You're going to have to stand back so that the resolution is not torn apart by being so close to it. But for family, for publishing online, I think these older cameras, these older, smaller sensor cameras have a lot to offer, and I think we should not discount them. And I think, if I encouraged a new photographer, these days, I would steer them in a few different directions. I would say, don't buy new. Buy something that you get along with, because I think that means more than anything. Now, for instance, the Samsung EX2F. This is on the chopping block. It's already sold, so it's going on eBay. I'm shipping it out today, for that matter. Great features, right? Great features. It has a flippy screen. It's got even a 1.4 aperture with that 1/1.7 sensor, so definitely brings in a lot more light than a lot of other cameras. It's got good handling in terms of the grip, and it's made of a good material, maybe even magnesium alloy, so good camera. But I personally didn't jive with this camera the way I did the Ricoh and the Nikon, and I tell you why. There's little things, like these little things might seem like first world problems, and they absolutely are, but these can be the deal breakers. And one of them was the front dial. This front dial is so flush with the grip that you don't really feel it, and it turns very easily. And so the issue with that is that I was changing my settings without knowing. And so this makes, because of the sensitivity of the front, this makes it a two-hand camera to me. You have to kind of hold it very sensitively and make sure that, you know, you're balancing on one side so that you're not touching this dial. And so that kind of defeats the purpose, because it's such a small camera with a good build that you want to be able to one-hand it and just be like, you know, move around, grab the shot and keep going. But you can't do that because you're changing settings and you're not even realizing it. Another annoyance to me was that this back dial right here, which is also a D-pad at the same time, there's a Wi-Fi button that seemingly is very easy to accidentally hit, because the thumb grip and the space over here is very narrow. And so I'm accidentally hitting that a lot, and it puts it into this mode that you can't even use, because the Samsung, you know, Wi-Fi is defunct, is not useful, not something you could use. And so every time I hit it, I have to cancel out of it to get back to shooting. And so that again allows me to miss the shot, you know, because it's doing something I didn't want it to do. So unfortunately, I mean, in theory, this was a great concept, but those two annoyances, those two little niggles for me, just didn't work out. And so, yeah, I sold it. So I'm sticking with the Nikon and the Ricoh as my small sensor, you know, pair for 2024. Now, what does the future hold? The future hold for cameras. I will try my best not to buy new cameras in 2024 unless I'm very compelled. I experimented a lot in 2023, and thankfully I was able to sell off for most of what I experimented with that I didn't want to keep. You know, so I was able to sell it. So I kept everything in great condition. I cleaned them up. You know, I did everything I could to make sure that those things were not damaged or used, you know, improperly, so that they were in great condition for the next buyer. But I think if I were to get another camera in 2024, I have a few on my mind, and here's what it is. I'm thinking that the Canon RP could be a good bargain for photography. Full frame, has a decent grip, has a flippy screen and a mic input, 26 megapixels, and has the Canon great autofocus, dual pixel autofocus. I'm used to, you know, I've had Canon in the past, so I know that very well. Canon is a little boring of a system. It doesn't have sexy looks or anything. It's very utilitarian. You know, it is what it is. But I think a full frame offering that is probably going for $600 to $700. I think it compels me, you know, and I feel like, you know, you want to add things to your collection that have a space that's different from the rest of your lineup. Now, my lineup is all APS-C, other than these small sensor cameras that I already talked about. And so I think full frame could have a spot when I think about low light and indoors. And also because it has a flip screen, I could do a little bit of vlogging with it full frame. It's a small camera. It does have those smaller Canon batteries. I am used to those smaller Canon batteries. And so I don't think that bothers me. You get a couple of those and you're good. I don't really vlog that long anyway when I do. And I think it could be a compelling, fun option to add. And I would probably stick with maybe 2 lenses at best. A 35, and then I want something wider to do the vlogging. So 35 would be my general purpose, and then I would use something wider, maybe a 16 or so, you know, something like that to do vlogs with, you know, if I do any vlogs with it. But something that interests me. Now, another camera that I was thinking about in 2024 is revisiting my Fuji X30. I used to have that camera, and I really loved it because it has a mechanical zoom. For such a small sensor camera, it has a 2/3" sensor, which is a little bit bigger than the Nikon and the Ricoh I mentioned. A little bit bigger, but has a mechanical zoom. It has the Fuji film simulations, and it's a 28 to 112 f2 to 2.8, and has great handling, great build. It's a decent, size enthusiast camera. It's not really small, but not really big at the same time. And so I've always loved that camera, and I don't even know why I sold it, but I love the concept of it. And maybe I didn't appreciate what I had at the time as much, because I didn't shoot with intention with these small sensor cameras like I do now, and really understand and embrace those limitations. But I think it could be something that would pop up back in my lineup. I think in the small sensor, lineup that I have, it could fit in a certain box for me, as something fun to use. The Nikon is very similar in a way when you think about it. Small sensor, zoom range, handling is, good because it's not such a small camera, so it feels a little bit more premium and serious. But there are differences because the Fuji simulations, the customization of the dials, it's going to give you a different feel. And so, if there's one at a great price, I may snag it up. So yeah, that's, and also I'm going to focus a lot more on publishing blog posts on my website. So if you want, go check out my website. The links are in the description, jmtphotographyandmedia.com. I'm going to be doing a lot more publishing of videos there. I'm publishing of blogs there, written articles, and then also companioning those with videos on YouTube. So really just to talk about general photography. I think I want to move away from the gear as much and really talk about the art and the theory and the process more, especially when it comes to like beginners and flash. So, my goal is to just share knowledge and help and also absorb knowledge from the community. So that's all I got. I'm going to end it there. This was a long one, unusually long, but this is my first one for 2024. And again, vlogging on the Nikon P7800, giving it a test to see how it is. And that's it. Happy New Year, and talk to you in 2024.